Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
Yes, hello everybody. Thanks for listening. As always, calm down from the Masters now, but there's some more Masters to come over in Germany.
There really is, Phil. Yeah, it's Friday. It's 5-5. I wonder how many people out there are shouting right now. It's Crackerjack. That's going back a while, isn't it? Going back a few. If I said to you, I could crush a grape. I mean, your face would be like, yeah, just like, are you all right, mate? You got a bit mad. But to some people, if I said I could crush a grape, would make sense. It's not, of course, Crackerjack. It is Talking Snooker. Great to be with you, everybody. And the German Masters, Phil, absolutely. 15 years old. I mean, that is, yeah, someone said it was sort of 7 or 8. That would be okay. But 15, gone quickly. Let's not lie. The doors of the Tempodrome, that great snooker venue, will be swinging open on Monday, and we'll look ahead shortly. But first, maybe should we just talk about more maximums, because that is outrageous. I mean, we're now up to 21 for the season. Unless one's just happened in the last few minutes, Phil. Perfectly possible. It could be 23 or 24 by the time you're tuning into this. By the time we put it up, who knows? But it's Zhao Xintong and Wu Yiza. That was the same day, wasn't it? And then Zhao Xintong. I mean, we've just been talking off the air, and listen, we've been talking all season about they're less newsworthy than ever. Well, there's never been a week where that's come to prominence so much. I mean, they're not even being reported. I mean, I think even a couple on Twitter. I don't think I did the Matthew Selt one for a couple of weeks. I thought I've got Matt Selt. Well, I better put that on Twitter now. It's absolutely, mad, really. I mean, they're generous tables, I think, aren't they? At the Championship League, people are pointing that out. That's not an unfair comment, I think. But 21, what are we going to be left with? 30's got to be on the table, Phil. Come on.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think the Championship League is the best chance to rack them up. That's five now in the Invitational, and there was one in the ranking at the start of the season as well. So yeah, I think whenever I hear about those rats on tables, they are generous for scoring. So it's the time to make them, and it's the atmosphere as well. You get a lot of the top players in that tournament. Not great pressure, no fans in. It's the time when you'd go for maximums and on the table to get them. So yeah, they've been flying in. So yeah, it's Wakelin, Selt, Shogadong, Wu Yizu, and Zhao Xintong are all done it in the Championship League now. So yeah, like you said, they're not even sort of getting mentioned anymore. They're still when you're watching the game, it's still great to see. If you're watching a match and someone's on one, and you're like, wow, right, okay, exciting. But yeah, I suppose now when we hear them happening, they're certainly less remarkable than they used to be when there's so many for sure.
Yeah, and our good friend Daniel in Ireland, the Green Bay's great judge of the game, messaged me to say I actually saw one live, shouting tongue. I was so pleased, and I thought, do you know what? That's sort of right, really, because even people that are big snooker people, we don't watch everyone live, do we?
Mm.
They're probably quite rare. If I think about them, I have to think about it. How many I've seen live out of the 21, but none of the recent ones for sure, the Championship League ones, and plenty of the other ones as well. So in that sense, it's not like we're glued to it, and you're right to say, even when you're watching on telly, there's something about it. And when you're there, obviously you're not an option at the Championship League, but when you're there, and no one can deny that that's something. I mean, I just got a couple of replies this morning, sort of saying that. One was saying they saw one from the front row of the Crucible. Now that's
That's good.
self-evidently that's self-evidently very good. But this you know friend and fan of mine on Twitter, brilliant, was saying, Phil, that they've never seen anything better in sport, almost, and that's the kind of cachet, and that is it. When they're done at the Crucible, it's up there with in the sporting annals. But I guess that's the nature of it. Different maxims will be made type thing. David Caulfield's written another piece. He's sort of saying it's got a bit far now, and they really have lost their glaze now. And he put it in rather stronger terms than that. And that's worth looking at Snooker HQ, the snooker writer David Caulfield. But listen, these guys are certainly bashing them in, Phil, and giving us Well, something to talk about, as I say, but not making an awful lot of news. Got to say as well, just to dot the i's and cross the t's a little bit more. Mark Selby emerging as a winner from Group 5 play on Monday and Tuesday. He beat Xiao Tong 3-1 in the final. Then we had deja vu all over again, Phil, because Wu Yiza was the winner from Group 6 on Wednesday and Thursday. He beat Xiao Tong 3-1. So I think you said that Xiao's now not playing on the next stage. I mean, you get a lot of chances of this, don't you? It's quite confusing. I'm not going to do the Ted Rogers gag again, but this I like the summer version. I quite like it really. That's sort of, I can make sense of it. It's week to week to week to week. There's nothing else on. It fills the gap nicely when there's normally mammoth sporting events elsewhere. This one, with the greatest wood in the world, I think you'd be hard pushed to say it's something that really reaches the parts, wouldn't you? If at all.
Yeah, yeah, it's not it's an odd format. I mean, it used to sort of make more sense, I think, when it was just on that sort of streaming, wasn't it? When it first existed back at like Crondon Park. But yeah, the sort of spilling over into following groups if you haven't got through yours. I always think it would just be nicer to give other people a chance rather than you being able to play in three or four or more groups. You know, get more players in, but must be a reason why they do that. But yeah, I mean, it does make for some amazing performances. I watched quite a lot of that group that Selby won, and I think he beat Bingham and Wu back to back without either of them scoring a point. And he was
Mm.
absurdly good, and then beat Zhao, and it was amazing in the final as well. So yeah, Selby looks like that first round defeat in the Masters was a bit of a blip. He looks to be playing very well again. Um, but yeah, no, it's a funny tournament, isn't it? The Championship League Invitational. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of it is really. Um, but like I say, you get to see some quite incredible snooker. Um, but it does feel like there could be a better way of formatting it. But that's what we've got at the minute, and we've got quite an interesting winners group lining up. One more person to join them, but Tom Ford, Elliot Slessor, Wee, Matt Sell, Mark Selby, and Wu Yiza so far. So not regular tournament winners in there other than Mark Selby. So good chance for someone to get their hands on some silverware that doesn't often do so.
You've got a touch of the Metcalfs there. I mean, I've just finally started saying such a way, and you've gone back to the.
Gone back, yeah. It's
But it's me that it's me that needs to improve on that, and I'm going to do that later on, hopefully, when we come to more such a way chat when it comes to the German Master. The other thing I'd say is that the winners of the summer ones generally stick in the memory. I mean, Dave Gilbert, things like that, that's the first ranking event. But most of them, I think, oh, so and so won that year. I remember that year. This one, I know Higgins won one or two of them, I think, but generally, Selby, I'm going to now name all of them, aren't I, and prove myself wrong. But I don't really think that, that doesn't really, yeah, in any great way, sort of, I'd say, reach the parts. But listen, that's what we've got at the moment. It fills the gaps anyway in between sort of tournaments, although occasionally, of course, it overlaps, as Neil Phelps was pointing out with the qualifying. That was a bit of a mess in the first week of the year. But anyway, Phil, let's move on and say German Masters, great tournament. Many people going, many people from the UK, where we're from, but many people around Europe making what maybe not quite raise it to pilgrimage levels yet, but maybe not quite that special in the game. But certainly, it feels a little bit more than the sort of like a vanilla visit. Certainly, it's something a bit special about going there. So, if you are, going and want to give us your experience, I mean, opinions do differ. I mean, I put not a video, as a picture up of the Tempodrome, and you can never do that really without people saying it's a long way away. And I'm one of those that says, I don't think there's an issue at all when you're there, really. Some people don't agree. That's fair enough, But I tell you what, David Hendon had a very interesting podcast episode out this week, didn't he, about the future of the Crucible, and making the point that I think we've all made, and I totally agree with that. We haven't really ever been offered with with anything that's a really decent alternative. That would be the thing. I mean, back in the day when I was growing up, the Albert Hall was seriously talked about. Now, we're going to the Albert Hall, roll up, roll up. Now we're talking. But
yeah,
that's an incredible building with incredible history. I mean, I've gone to the very, very top there. But, you know, I personally haven't been inspired by almost any of the suggestions. But in my view, the temper gem could be one. Now, I know there are people that will object to that and say, the sight lines aren't always the best. I know when they had that funny format, but he wouldn't do it in that funny format. It was the World Championship.
Mm.
The tables wouldn't be like that. Mark Allen, I know, is not a fan. Others too of that. But again, that wouldn't be a factor. But I think it's got a certain gravitas for sure. We're really looking forward to it, aren't we? And well, maybe we'll just have a word from you first in general terms. I mean, I say about not remembering winners of certain events. We nearly always remember the winners of this, and the ones that get there. Last year, Kyron Wilson, they don't just think, it's quite a decent tournament. They think this is something really, really big to go on the CV.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And it's a great sort of change, unique thing on the calendar, isn't it? Obviously, it's the only one in Germany at the minute, only one in
Mm.
Europe, which is poor, really. But that's where we are. But the look of it, the unique setup with the outer tables, you know what tournament you're watching when you turn the German Masters on, and that's to its great credit because
Yeah.
you don't get that with every tournament, really. So it's brilliant for that. And yeah, everyone takes it very, very seriously. And the change of the format to get the top 16 there, I'm sort of naturally not fully on board with when the 16 get like loads of protection. But then when you look at the draw and they're all there, it's like, oh, that is great, to be fair. But I would sort of prefer it to be sort of fairer for the same for everyone. But there's obvious reasons for it, and the fans get all the top players, the broadcasters get it. So yeah, I get it. And it's a stellar lineup, isn't it? We've literally got all the top players in the draw at the minute. One Mr. Ronnie O'Sullivan is still in the draw as we speak, but we're not so sure he's going to stay there forever. But we've said how many times we've said on here, there's no point trying to predict it. Maybe this is the one he'll turn up for. Who knows?
Well, I've just put my airplane mode on, Phil, just to avoid getting the odd annoying text that keeps coming through. But that might be a mistake. Have you got your phone on, mate? Have you? Before we go off
I've
the
got it down
air,
here. Yeah.
you never know. We might get a Ronnie message. But anyway, right now he's in the draw for sure as we speak here on this Friday afternoon, folks. An unusual Friday episode for you. Busy, busy weekend of sport coming up, and obviously we want to do this great event in Germany Justice. So, Phil, as you say, lots of big names to look forward to, and actually, an awful lot of big players didn't used to qualify for Germany. Was it because they were just before Christmas? That was one of the reasons, wasn't it? Seemed to be some
Yeah.
funny results in qualifying, but yeah, they are there this time. By the way, very good point about switching on and knowing what you're watching. Now that's massive in any sport. I always think two events, not just that they seem similar, they are immensely connected with each other, and that's the Masters at Augusta and Wimbledon. Now that those two actually, they're like bedfellows. They watch each other, they take inspiration from each other, they look at what the other's doing from a whole host of reasons, including, of course, a lack of advertising, which is they're both famous for. And it's absolutely true that if you switch on the Masters Golf at Augusta, even if you're not a golf person, that's the Masters. It looks like nowhere else with those pink azaleas, that amazing course, Amen Corner, and all that. Same with Wimbledon. There aren't that many grass court events, full stop, but you put on Wimbledon, you know instantly what you're watching. Centre court, number one court, it's the images we've seen all our days. And that's important in sport. There's lots of snooker that isn't like that. If you put a snooker event on, you had to, you didn't know, you woke up and said this, you don't know what date it is. You'd sometimes be hard pushed. This isn't one of those. This looks, distinct, and that's absolutely, brilliant actually. So Phil, Monday afternoon, let's look at some of the matches. Kyron Wilson's got Robert Milkins. That's a repeat of the final in Gibraltar where Milkins won his first ranking event. That one that comes to mind. I see you laughing away there. Do you remember
I
that? That was
forgot
quite
about that, but yeah, yeah.
Barry Hawkins, Mark Davis. Well, their first match was 26 years ago. I'll do that quite weak line again for me. They might know each other's games by now. They might do. Davis won 5-1 when they met at the German Masters 2 years ago, actually. Not a match I particularly remember. Hell of a win. I'm sure we talked about it on here, but it doesn't really come to mind instantly. Mark Allen, Oliver Lyons. Well, Ollie's won their last two meetings at the Xi'an Grand Prix early this season and the Northern Ireland Open last season, which just goes to show the kind of form Ollie's been in, actually. Sean Murphy's got Zach Shirty. Well, that's not been a happy meeting for Zach. Murphy wins them all when they've met before and heavily, including 4-0 at the English Open earlier this season. On to Monday night, then a word to you. I know you'll have some great things to say about these matches. Mark Williams, Sanderson, Lamb on Monday night. They had a close one at the British Open this season, actually. Mark winning by the old frame, 4-3. Wu Yisa would have had Jordan Brown. You've just given me the news before we came off the airfield that Wu has pulled out of the tournament for health reasons. So Jordan Brown goes through there. And then we got Chris Wakelin against Ishpreet Singh Chadha. Of course, Wakelin just before Christmas, winning a bona fide ranking event for the first time, winning the Scottish Open. So loads to look forward to there. Unfortunately, we won't see that wonderful player Wu Yisa, but we'll certainly see plenty of talent, Phil. If you're going to the German Masters any day, you'd have a great time. But Monday, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, that's a cracking day of action, isn't it? Yeah, shame about Wu because he'd just been playing so well in the Championship League, but he's not going to be there. And Chan Yu also pulled out a couple of days before he had visa problems, so he was going to play Neil Robertson, but he's got a bye. But yeah, a couple of well, no, all interesting games really. Ollie Lyons got a late call up to play in the Championship League this week and played in a couple of groups, so you'd think he'd be sharp. And with a
Mm.
few extra quid in the bank, that's a nice little bonus for him. And as you say, good recent record against Mark Allen. So could be an upset on the cards there. Yeah, that match you mentioned, the English Open, Surety against Murphy. I remember that because that's Zach's sort of local event, and he had a lot of support in,
Oh
and
God, yeah.
he barely touched
Oh
his
yeah.
cue, did he?
I think I might have been
Like,
there. Murphy was sensational, wasn't he?
yeah,
Yeah.
he broke off a couple of times, and that was about it. That was just a Murphy masterclass. And it was a bit of a sorry sight for Zach. He didn't do much wrong, but it was just one of those games where these top boys can just steamroll you. It's crazy. But yeah, so hopefully he'll be looking for some revenge there. But Sean said, didn't he, when he went suffered that opening day defeat at Alexandra Palace, he said straight away, "I'm going to hopefully do a Kyron and say I'm going to go and smash
Oh
it in
yeah.
Germany." Um, I mean, Kyron did lose in the final, to be fair. It was a bit different than losing in the first round when he said that. But I'm sure Sean will be very motivated to get back on the horse there because he'll be disappointed with that. His Masters defence falling at the first hurdle. So, yeah, great day, though, isn't it? And Wakelin, it that was sort of a bonus Masters one. He didn't play amazing there, but I think he'll still be buzzing after that, after Scotland. That will still be rolling on from there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he's playing.
Interesting indeed, it really will. And such a redoubtable customer now. Chris Wakelin has to be a contender pretty much every tournament, frankly. But yeah, there's lots of great stuff there from you. We really are looking forward to some cracking matches. Yeah, Murphy was ridiculously good in that match against Saxony. Almost unfair. This sport is unfair sometimes, Phil, isn't it? Tuesday morning, then we got Judd Trump against Chun Kai Wei, and well, I mean, Judd's had a crushing disappointment there with what happened at the Masters, no question about it. I don't think crushing's too strong. He was so close to the final, but he lost out to John Higgins. So we'll see how he bounces back. And here we go, Phil. Time to get it right. Sir Joe Wei against Fang Zhenji. They played at the Xi'an Grand Prix in October, so winning that 5-4. I was thinking, it's a funny one because Sir's the bigger player quite clearly, but of course, Fan is the ranking event winner. So it's a funny one the way that kind of works out. But we'll look forward to that one, as we will uh, when Zhao Gudong plays Robbie Williams. Well, of course, Zhao had a famous win against Mark Selby. Funny you say that about Mark, by the way, because that's kind of what I said on here and what I took from his interview after the match. And they're generally very honest. The Selby, Mark Selby clearly is. He didn't think he was playing badly. I mean, I think you
Mm.
mentioned that blue he got. Was it the blue he missed in that frame when
Yeah,
he should have got back
yeah,
in it? That was bad. But I saw some other people mention. I mean, the Masters is a funny event anyway. Generally, I think out of all the big ones, it's often the one that leaves me the most confused afterwards. Just the way it goes, because you're playing such great players all the time. I mean, a lot of them weren't in form actually, as we saw, but it's a confusing event. I often find the Masters. I mean, Selby did hardly anything wrong, really, but he got well beaten by a cracking performance from Zhao. But then, of course, Zhao himself was beaten heavily by his good friend Wu Yiza. So we'll look forward to that one. John Higgins, Jamie Jones. Well, that instantly came to mind. I thought that's a big one. That's Crucible, and it was. It was Crucible in 24, 2 years ago. 10-6 win for Higgins there in the first round. Jones has beaten Higgins once only in their head-to-heads. That was at the Scottish Open in 22. Well, we look forward to Tuesday afternoon. Mark Selby against Liu Hong Yu. They played 4 times last year. Selby won 3 of them. Liu did win 5-2 at the World Open, last season's World Open. Well, we've got Ronnie O'Sullivan against Long Zhihang. And we see Ronnie very rarely. It would be an immense thrill for the Berlin public, wouldn't it, Phil? as we speak now, if Ronnie was to show up there, what excitement there'd be. He has played in it before, of course. I think he was part of that. Whenever I talk to people in Germany about the best night there, they never hesitate. It's that night when they're all four might have been about a decade ago. And I think Ronnie was part of that. All the matches were exciting. In the days when it was only a 5 day tournament, they had all the quarters on Friday night, which was a great snooker session, always actually. I think it was Ronnie and Judd may have been part of that. Anyway, we'll wait and see. Gary Wilson's got Scott Donaldson. They haven't met very often, but they have. Donaldson's won their last meeting in German Masters qualifying late in 23. Donaldson winning 5-4. And then Zhao Xingtong, the world champions, got Jiang Jun, and their only previous meeting went the way of Zhao, who won 6-2 at the 2024 UK Championship. And there's obviously loads of tantalising either ors to come after that, into Tuesday night, into Wednesday, what have you. So, yeah, loads of sort of treats there. And, well, I'm not sure what the headline to pass to you there. I suppose one of the things to say is we are sort of still thinking about the Masters that came before the German Masters. Loads of players, well, unless they're Chiron, most of them going with hangovers.
Yeah, that's the way of it, isn't it? Like John Higgins has had a brilliant run at the Masters, oldest ever Triple Crown finalist, but he wasn't feeling great after that performance in the final and defeat. But yeah, I mean, I always think real fair play to John. He plays more. Mark plays most things, to be fair. But pulls out the odd thing, but Higgins really does turn up for almost everything. He's a bit of a road warrior into his 50s now. Uh, he'll be in Germany, and he's still one of the favourites for everything, isn't he?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, again, this is a bit daft because by the time anyone hears it, he may well have not be in the draw anymore. But O'Sullivan, if he does play, he's got an amazing section of the draw because if he beat Long Zhihang, he'd be playing Ali Carter, which is just a classic bit of rivalry. In the next round, he might play Mark Selby, and if he won that, he might play Zhao Xingtong, and then if he won that in the semis, he might play Judd Trump. So if Ronnie does want to go and
Well,
play
if
in
Ronnie's
Berlin,
hearing this, he definitely won't play now, Phil.
yeah, that was the point.
You sealed it.
But that so he could, if he did want to, he could have quite an incredible run in Germany, but seems unlikely. But yeah, as I say, like with the top 16 being held over, it does create these amazing sessions early on, which are sort of like those. We always used to get them on the opening day of the Home Nations when it was like it was like a cheap ticket and you got all the best players in the world. And it's a bit like that. The first 2 days in Germany, it's great stuff. And it'll be interesting to see, yeah, and to see how Judd goes. I know he sort of gets criticised all the time, but he's been remarkably consistent, really. He's at the deep end of most things. He's just not winning them. So we'll see what happens again now. I think with the German Masters, interesting history, really. And it was the same again last year with Kyron winning it. Had a lot of repeat winners. So Kyron, that was his second.
Yeah.
Judd, he'd won it
Ali.
3 times, I think. Yeah, Ali, that was his second. So the last
Mm.
sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we've only had four different winners. Williams won it before that. He'd won it before as well. Um, so you might be looking at people who've triumphed there before. So, Zhao Tom might be a shout. Or Kyron or
Mm.
Judd. These kind of guys. Yeah, I mean, none of those would be surprising if they won any tournament. But yeah, it does seem to be something about repeat winners in Berlin.
Yeah, that's a very good shout, actually. I mean, I made my first and indeed only visit so far to that great tournament last year. It's one of the greatest cliches in sport and a bit of a, I can't think of the right word now, but it's a bit of a corny old one. Oh, shame there has to be a loser, but I mean, it really was so true in that final. That was outrageous. I mean, it must have been after midnight German time or getting on for that way, and that decider. And I mean, Barry didn't do much wrong. It was a hell of a final. Barry's lost too many like that, and that they hurt on the CV. But it was a famous win for Kyron. I remember describing that on Radio Snooker. Actually, great climax to that, and getting reaction from there. And it's a special snooker venue. I mean, it's always good, but that final weekend, semis and final, when it's packed out there, that really is a special place. Phil, we're looking forward to it very much. We're going to move on to other business. Maybe a bit of WSF news for you before we do a name check. We have some women's action, some junior action going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're sort of recording at an inopportune time here because the final of the women's and the junior are going on this afternoon, maybe even as we speak, in Sofia. The women's final by Yulu against Ngong Yi, reasonably predictable final on the cards there. Bai's been knocking in big breaks again. Made a 1-3-1 in a semi-final, which I think was her biggest ever break. So yeah, she's looking good as she always has. But if you catch this before that's finished, that you can watch that on YouTube. And then the junior final, and there's a tour card on the line here. So this is big between Ukraine's Mikhailo Larkov, who's 17, and China's Wang Jingbo, who's 18. Um, Wang has actually played in some prep when they get wildcards into the Chinese tournaments. He beat Robbie Williams in Wuhan this year, and he's beaten Matsell and Ben Wollaston before in ranking events. So he can play. I think that's fair to say. And Larkov, I've not seen much of, but he's been playing on the Q Tour. He's beaten some very recognisable names there. Been to a semi-final on that. So obviously a talent there too. There's a few coming from Ukraine. There's a nice little hub there. But I would guess Wang is the favourite for that. But they both won their semi-finals 4-0. So the lads in form, those two. But yeah, we'll have a new tour card holder by the end of today.
And that actually has been available to watch, isn't it? We're talking about that, but that the old lovely lilting commentary there.
Yeah.
There's very relaxing, and so that can watch. Did you say 17 and 18? That's old. That's old men. They're not young.
Yeah.
Not
No, they're coming.
14 year
Yeah.
olds.
Yeah, no,
But
but
that
Him and his brother, the two, they've been playing sort of those wild card rounds for a while, and I think it's only a matter of time till they're on tour. And yeah, Wang Jingbo might be by the end of today.
Well, thanks for that, Phil. And that action continues, of course. So that is available to watch. Is it YouTube? I can't remember where
Yeah.
I watched it now. It was on YouTube, isn't it? So yeah, action continues in Sofia, and we are looking forward to the big event then, the German Masters getting underway on Monday. As I say, if you are going, talkingsnooker@yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. We'd love to hear from you. Phil, let's do a name check and then move on and say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Phil, we have been promising that we would do this Brian Campbell email for a long time now. Let's get round to it, shall we? It's quite football based. Let's do it. Dear Nick and Phil, what a fantastic episode that was with Neil Folds. He really is a class act, and I'm sure most of us could listen to his wisdom all day. Yeah, no doubt. That's absolutely true, isn't it, Phil? Great, great value, Neil. We really do appreciate him very much joining us. Oh, I see my airplane doesn't stop things coming through. These phones, honestly. Mention, Grandad here. Mention of Neil's support for QPR reminded me of when I was buying Sabutio teams as a kid, because QPR, my team Morton and Reading, were classed as the same due to them all wearing blue and white hoops. Perhaps one for the teenagers there. Would kids be pleased to get Sabutio on Christmas morning these days? Or is it all Xboxes and PlayStations now? Not sure why he's asking us, Phil.
I
We
used to
never.
have Sabutio
Oh
for
yeah, of
sure.
course. But I don't
A
know why he's
lot of
asking us what
kids.
they're doing now. Oh, Sabutio was an absolute cracker. Yeah, that was brilliant.
Mm.
I'm not sure if still a massive going concern, but yeah, that was a beautiful game from yesteryear, actually.
Yeah, I mean it was the space, wasn't it? Because I had my like the the felt. Is it felt? I don't know. The pit. It had it
Yeah.
like pinned to like a massive bit of wood that it kept in the garage, but you'd have to drag it into the house to have like across the living room floor. So it was a big space user.
Yeah, good point of saying it. Brian says also when Nick mentioned people chatting to him about Brentford when they see his hoodie, one name he could throw into the conversation to test their knowledge is that of striker Rowan Alexander. By the way, I saw a Brentford hoodie over Stephen Hendry's face on the billboard at the Masters. Absolute yobs. That's no way to treat a seven-time world champion, Phil. Rowan had 2 seasons, this is from Brian, at Griffin Park at the same time as Terry Hurlock, who I remember well, and Chris Kamal, all these names from yesteryear, before moving to Capello in 1986 and scoring on his Morton debut in a 3-0 win against Clyde. It is a sign of the times that a move from Brentford to Morton just couldn't happen today due to the way that money has changed the game to a huge extent. Another sign of the times is the season before moving to Brentford. Rowan played for St Mirren at Love Street in the first round of the UEFA Cup against a Feyenoord team featuring Ruud Gullit and Marco van Basten. It feels like that kind of tie is less and less likely due to the way European competitions are run now, with so many preliminary rounds to get through for teams from nations with smaller coefficients. The word coefficients doesn't appear too often on this podcast, Phil. There just seemed like a simplicity to European competitions back then. I'm totally digressing, but Dundee United drew at Old Trafford in the mid-80s. It was a 2-all draw, and then United won 3-2 in Dundee. I remember it well. They reached the European Cup semi-final in '84 and beat Barcelona home and away on the way to the 1987 UEFA Cup final. A game I also remember, the second leg live on ITV. I thought it might have gone in near post, uh, but it didn't, if memory so. I thought it might have missed. That's right, the goal, wasn't it? Went in near post. These things just couldn't happen now, unfortunately. This has been 1980s talking football with Brian Campbell. Kind regards, Brian. Yeah, a lot of football chat there. Thanks very much. Lots of memories. But you know,
I
it,
was sort of waiting for the snooker tie-in at the end of that football chat, but it never came.
no, really. But I mean, Brian's a great. I mean, Brian sent me to Radio Snooker what can only be described as snooker's equivalent of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, honestly, it made the Old Testament look like a sort of bite-sized holiday read. It was massive, but it filled the gap. I can see you chuckling away there. It really was big, but some great news from Brian actually on that service. You want to listen about them? That is snooker based about the Masters, and um, yeah, I'm just trying to remember that bloody thing I got a bit wrong there. It was I can't. It was a goal that went in that we thought was side netting and it ended up going in. I think that was it. But I do remember that final very well. And those were the days when Scottish teams were really good. Now people
Mm.
say, "Oh, Rangers, Celtic," but I grew up with Fergie's Aberdeen, Jim McLean's Dundee United, mentioned here. The Hearts team that should have won the league in '85-6 when Celtic just did it at the end. Anyway, these are all football mentions here, Phil. We do thank you to Brian, and of course all your snooker points are most welcome, of course. And well, I think we've sort of done the Masters, but lots of reflections about that, and you know, I think what comes out of it for most people, not everyone, and I feel a bit bad for trying to correct a fan last time because they're perfectly entitled to say what they think about the leg room. Most people say the leg room is difficult. Most people say it's very hot in there. Not everybody, everyone has different bodies, different feelings, whatever. But that's what we'll come back to. And Phil, just one other line, which I did get a bit of an, not much of an update in terms of heavy news, but I did speak to a couple of people at the Masters who mentioned to me that there wasn't any concrete news on the Crucible, but talks were still ongoing with Sheffield City Council, WST. The relationship continued to be warm. And we had an official statement, didn't we, along those lines? So it's not really moving it on much, apart from we know talks are still ongoing. We await to hear from that. I have a feeling it might not be an immense amount of time away, but obviously we are hoping to have something certainly before this 26 tournament, eh?
Well, yeah, hoping, yeah, they're not giving us too much, though, are they? We know the negotiations are still going on, which I think we assumed or knew anyway. Um, yeah, we would really like to know, definitely, well, as soon as possible, but before this World Championship, just in terms of annoyance more than anything, because it will just dominate the conversation if not. But yeah, they're talking. It does still seem like Sheffield is the first choice as far as I can tell. We've not heard any, people have suggested other things, but no firm answers to anything as where else it could go. So yeah, we'll wait. We'll keep asking. Um, and yeah, it was pretty much just a set statement. I looked at the statement they gave just ahead of the last World Championship, and it was basically the same words. So yeah, they're still talking, and we'll wait to hear to find out.
Very much so. We say thank you to YouTube watcher Anthony. By the way, our hits on there are creeping up. Big thanks to Neil Folds. Funny enough, I mean, we had some very good listening numbers as well, but he gave us an immense boost on YouTube. I personally wasn't prepared for that. That was brilliant, as you rightly said when we chatted about it. Masters is a huge event. People will look up Masters previews on YouTube. I'm sure that would have been part of it. Plus the Neil effect. Great numbers on there. But talking about YouTube, one of our watchers on there, Anthony, points out something we said last time. I mentioned that Cliff Thorburn said to a colleague of ours that Cliff mentioned he was the only player still alive, still with us, who played in the 1975 Masters. Well, Anthony points out that Rex Williams is actually still with us, now aged 92. So the moral of the story is there, and I've had this a few times when I'm writing and particularly subbing over the years. These great sports people, they're wonderful to watch when they're playing sport. Don't always trust them with information, and that's my fault, not Cliff's. With things like information and stats. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing, as I'm looking over that, going back to that 75 Masters. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, it's over 50 years ago, but just an incredible slice of snooker here. So that picture we always see of
Mm.
Cliff with the hair and what have you, but just those players, those names, Higgins, of course, one of them, Alex, and just absolute yesteryear, and just that is the magic of the Masters, really. Among many things, the history is absolutely immense. BBC put a lot of nostalgia out this year. They were going through each sort of decade and each period of sort of 10 years, and it was just brilliant nostalgia, and there we are. But yeah, I remember Rex Williams a few years ago, actually, pre-COVID, so maybe 7, 8 years ago, picking up an award, maybe into the Hall of Fame. I've forgotten exactly what it was at the big posh do we used to go to, Phil, which they cancelled after, if
Yeah.
you remember, when COVID came along. I think it cost a lot, awful lot of money, to be fair, didn't it? So that I do remember him there. There we are. I'm not sure that went down enormously well with well, certainly my predecessor as editor of Snooker Scene at the time, but snooker politics run deep, Phil. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Even even as people head into an advanced age. But yeah, thanks to that, Anthony and Phil. What else shall we say then? Maybe I'll go to you. A lot of waffling from me there. Go back to you and tell you maybe got what have you got coming up? What have you had in recent days for people to read?
Well, was one other point I wanted to make, which someone was asking me on Twitter, and I forgot to mention it the other day, because when it was in qualifying for the German Masters actually, and it was that Moody versus Chang Yu match, which everyone thought should be streamed and wasn't streamed. And I did ask someone at World Snooker as to what how the decisions are made on streaming, and it was just done on rankings, which seemed a shame because that was the obvious game to watch. But someone was asking me about why all 8 tables are streamed in China, but only 4 get shown on Discovery Plus. And they said it was basically sort of commercial reasons. Um, there's cost of production versus demand for those extra stream tables. So I think the sort of streaming quality in those the second 4 that goes to China isn't deemed as good enough to go on Discovery Plus, basically. So they have the deal for all 8 in China, but only 4 on Discovery Plus. It's just their broadcasting deal with the various broadcasters. So uh, sort of clear, but not entirely clear. But it didn't really help the explanation as to why we didn't see Moody against Chang, which was the obvious choice. I think someone could have and should have made that choice really that day. But yeah, and I think we do see an awful lot of the tour. But occasionally one slips through the net that we'd like to see, but that was why.
Well, thank you for that. And just checking that Rex Williams actually got that award in 16. Oh God. So I don't mean that, oh God, in terms of him getting it. I mean, oh God, in terms of a decade ago. How did that
Yeah.
happen? Of course, number of times world billiards champion and a big figure. I often used to see him playing and indeed talking about the game, commentary in the game, of course, and of course was PBSA chairman. A reign not without its controversy, but anyway, Rex Williams, a big figure in snooker history, and I do remember that night picking up an award in I think it was the Dorchester, wasn't it? Certainly a big hotel down in London that we all used to go to. Phil, I think we're going to shoot off soon. Just say I have a Masters Points of View broadcast on Radio Snooker, plus a chat with Ben Wollaston. Now he's one of those players, Phil, and you made this point very well. Others have too, but you made it particularly well. That Ben has well, he's saying a season mostly of downs. I think he also said it was a poor season at one time. He hasn't been that brilliant for him. He had a really good, decent run in Saudi. Elsewhere, not really. But of course, he hasn't won recent qualifiers. He's lost them. He had a few tip issues, actually. He's not playing much. He's saying, actually, I've got the World Open and then I've got Sheffield. On a bright side, he's saying I haven't heard too much from him. I did write at the time at the Crucible, but not since, about how special that was. He just says like nothing else, but it's given him confidence now. He'll get back there. When maybe he used to go thinking, I'm not sure. Now he thinks he'll get back there, so could still finish the season on a high. But yeah, Ben, one of a number of players. Actually, could there be a different way of organising the season? I don't know. But frankly, for a professional snooker player, he ain't doing an awful lot in the next couple of months.
Yeah, that's true. The Welsh and the World Open, if you're not in the Players Series. Don't know the official name. That gets called all different things. It used to be the ITV series, but now one of them's not on ITV. Actually, none of them are ITV.
None of them are.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, it gets called the Players Series sometimes, but it's not really that either. But you know what I mean? The Grand Prix, the Players, and the Tour. If you're not
Yeah.
in that, then it is quiet. Yeah, and there's a lot of pressure on the Welsh and the World Open, and then obviously huge pressure when you get to the World Championship qualifiers. So, yeah, people talk about it a lot. It'd be nice to have something to play in for the rest of the tour, but it just get quite tricky to organise. It feels like a busy calendar when you're watching it on the telly because there's loads of snooker, but sort of the same faces in most of them.
Yeah, indeed. Just a plug for my Sporting Life column, if you haven't seen that yet, on the website now. When I say it was Kyron Wilson's adventurous approach that won in the Masters title, and maybe contrasting with Judd a little bit, not to pick on Judd, but I think Judd's lost a little bit of that top level adventure. By the way, Hendry wasn't pulling punches. I mean, you know, whatever anyone thinks about, whether we have sort of strong words, no one has stronger words than that man. I mean, he was well, it's to the victor the spoils, isn't it? Very praiseworthy of Kyron Wilson, and but praise wasn't forthcoming elsewhere, really, was it? He had some damning words on the WST podcast to say about a number of players, really. And Job was one of them, and in Hendry's fire and his ire there. But that's the nature of these big tournaments, Phil. As you so often say, if you get to the final, the semis, yeah, you've had a good run, but not if you're Judd. Really, he wants
Mm.
to win the bloody thing. So that's obviously worth the listen because Hendry is he doesn't care about prisoners or anything like that. He holds no prisoners, whatever that phrase is, and he just says what he wants, doesn't he? Really, without fear or favour.
Yeah, yeah, and it's sort of I wrote that up those quotes, and they sound like really, really aggressive when you write them down, but it makes sense when he's saying it. Like you couldn't really
Yeah, of
argue with a
course,
lot of it. No, he's a top pundit, isn't he? Well worth watching and listening to.
definitely. I think we should shoot off, shouldn't we? Unless you've got anything more to say, we're just looking forward to Germany, aren't we? As I say, if everyone's going, let us know. It's going to be a great tournament, and yeah, have a great week. So I know you'll be covering it now. We'll all be enjoying watching it live in the UK, of course, on TNT Sports and Discovery Plus. Check WST for your broadcast options elsewhere. And yeah, it's going to be a smashing week. Cheerio, sir.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's one of the highlights of the calendar. So enjoy it, and we'll speak to you after Germany.
Indeed, we will. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this latest episode of Talking Snooker out on a Friday. Who'd ever have thunk it? For now, then, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.